So let's jump right into it. Thanks everybody for attending episode 16 and Let's Talk Recruiting. I sent out an email yesterday and this morning that we now have a podcast on Apple, Spotify, and Google, which is basically just a recorded version of this. Hope everybody enjoys that. I'm kind of increasing my skill set, learning these new tools. We have, we got basically across the country here represented from East Coast to West Coast. Our topic for today is 5 things I'd wish for in recruiting tools. And we have Catherine Amato out of our Los Angeles group, Ryan Watson out of Denver, same with Monica. Tell me if I'm getting this right. Warcall? Am I getting that right?
Close enough.
Yeah. Well, how do you say it?
Varho. It's
oh, wow.
left field. Don't worry about
it. Yeah, we've never gotten that one. And Paige Marsteller. Did I get that one right? All right, excellent. My daughter happens to live in Denver and she absolutely loves it. So I'm kind of jealous of you guys out there. So again, 5 things I'd wish for in recruiting tools. We're going to sort of do a round robin in discussion here just to see what everybody else out there is sort of wishing for or has on their wish list. So with that said, Ryan, let's sort of jump it over to you.
Okay, great. Well, Sean, first off, thank you. And thank you for everyone else for joining. I hope everyone is safe and as productive as possible wherever you're working today. So number one, just to tell a little bit about my background, I've been in talent acquisition for about 10 years now, a little over. Started on the staffing agency side, started in IT contract recruiting, recruited and sold, moved over to engineering, Department of Defense, managed recruiters and recruited there. Went corporate for the first time with Allstate Insurance, spent about 2.5 years there recruiting insurance agency owners in the 9-state region, and then left there, played up in the startup world for a while, went to a couple of startup staffing companies that really wasn't my game. So ironically, one of the staffing companies I was with, 210 Home Buyers Warranty, where I am working today, was one of my target customers. And through calling and really getting to know the organization, I found out that I really, really enjoyed the organization. It's a place I wanted to work, and it all worked out. Started there as a recruiter, actually as our only permanent recruiter, recruited for about a year and just recently got promoted to be our talent acquisition manager. So got a small team and responsible for recruiting basically everything from entry-level customer service reps all the way up to vice president level for a 600 employee organization. So that's a little about me and my background. I'm really excited to hear about this topic today. This is one of the things I'm passionate about, getting my start in technology recruiting. I'm very passionate about technology and using technology to make our jobs easier and better, and not only better for ourselves and more efficient, but better for the candidate, better for our clients internally to the customer, internally with the company we recruit internally for, or those who are our customers from the staffing agency world. So with that, I'll say in the last 10 years, we've come a long way. There's a lot of really cool stuff that used to be on my list of my wish list. Like as I'm looking at my notes here, candidate self-scheduling. I built that out in JobVite earlier this year, and it is one of the coolest things I've ever seen in recruiting, and saves an amazing amount of time. A good customizable ATS. JobVite, again, is one of many that are out there, but when we were going through the selection process for that, the different stuff that I got to see and play with out there and how customizable it is for the end user is amazing. And then the careers page, I never realized that the careers pages were going to come out as strong and as popular as they are, and it needed to be such a big part of your strategy, but that's been exciting as well. So I'll jump right into what I want to talk about and kind of provide some detail. But as I think of the different tools that I look for, not only for myself, but my team, I think back on all the articles that we've seen over the last, I'll call it 2 to 3 years about how AI is going to automate the recruiter's job, and it's going to start, recruiters need to be worried because it can do all this. It's like, AI is great and it can do a lot. Let's let it do the things that take up our time and that we don't like to do so that we can do what we do best, and that is be on the phone or across the table from either a candidate or a hiring manager making decisions. So with that, one of the biggest time killers that I've always had as recruiting is getting the candidates that you have sourced from external places, whether it be LinkedIn or Monster or Dice or ZipRecruiter, getting those candidates into your ATS. And that is one of the biggest time sucks, as I call it, that I've seen in my career. And what I saw conceptualized was essentially, this is something that I'd like to see on the ATS side of the house, or on the job board side of the house. But parsing resumes has gotten great. We can drag and drop now. We don't have to upload file and select all of these different things unless we're on some of the older ATSs that are out there. And I feel with you guys. I just moved away from UltiPro, so I definitely feel the pain there. But essentially what I would love to see is that when I'm out on, we'll say, Career Builder, if my ATS does not integrate with Career Builder, which there are a lot out there that don't, that's an expensive feature. What I would love to see a Career Builder do is allow me, when I select the resumes and hit forward, like I'm already going to forward the resumes, whether it be to a hiring manager or maybe a recruiter on my team, why can't I forward those to an Outlook mailbox that's for sourced resumes only? And there's an auto parsing feature that automatically pulls those resumes in, creates a candidate profile, doesn't even have to connect them to the rec, but at least just get them in there and set a task for the recruiter to pick up and start working that candidate. That's really what I'd like to see next. I know it's kind of a big undertaking, but I have seen similar things be done with Salesforce, for example, for sales invoices, and different platforms out there. And I've actually used a homegrown system that can do exactly what I'm talking about. So,
Ryan, it's interesting you bring up Salesforce. Back in the day when I did consulting work, what I would do is customize Salesforce for recruiting. So you get this whole environment, the ecosystem, sales and marketing, and there's a lot out there. We used Salesforce as a CRM. This was like starting back in 2006. So ATSs and tools in our industry have come a long way. This is sort of before they started out playing like that. We did exactly what you're saying. It wouldn't go into the ATS because we would use the CRM as kind of the front facing before you got to an ATS, before you became an applicant. We used, it was called Sovereign Technology. So they're a technology company who they just make a parsing tool. And there's about, I knew about like 10 companies that did this. So these technology companies sometimes power job boards and power ATSs because they just focus on that parsing. So we would do that. We'd have an email address. Like, let's say you forwarded me your resume because I emailed you. You said, hey, do you want to talk? Sure, here's my resume. I would hit forward in my Outlook or Gmail. It'd go into our CRM, and they would create a contact record in there. Now, if we knew, hey, there was a rec we want to put you against, we could say add the ATS, and it'd go up against that. But that, to your point, it worked like a charm because especially if you're doing outbound sourcing, they're not going to go apply to your ATS. You called them. They didn't call you. Exactly. So, hey, if you can just send me your resume, I'll get it in there for you. You don't have to do anything.
Yep. And it can be as simple as an integration. Like I've got a general application set up on my careers page, and it can just be an integration to that. Like, here's your general app. We'll reach out to you, or just as you mentioned, creating a contact record. But it's funny. I'm with JobVite now. I went live with that in February, and I can parse a resume and get a candidate record created in a matter of seconds, which is fantastic. But doing that over and over all day obviously takes a lot of time. I moved to JobVite from UltiPro, which if anybody from UltiPro is on, I apologize in advance. I do have a trust radius review out there, so I'm not going to surprise anyone. But that by far is the worst ATS I've ever used in 10 years. Adding a candidate, getting them on a requisition into the appropriate status is 2 to 3 minutes of a recruiter's time just for one candidate. And if you're actually outsourcing, which is what, as recruiters, we got to get really, really good at that if we're not already. You don't have time to be adding everybody, but we all know that we need those contacts, and that the end game is creating drip campaigns and different kind of engagement campaigns to keep those contacts engaged for the right time to join our organization. And in doing that, we got to save time so that we can capture everybody that we're seeing rather than just those select few that we're really going to hunt for a requisition. So
I'm curious if anybody here has any experience with Beamery. That's a CRM that we have invested in recently and are in the process of launching. And my understanding is, a lot of it is helping to keep those candidates engaged, keep them warm, be able to have these various campaigns also for reaching out. So I'm curious if, and anybody also participating on the chat, if they have experience with Beamery as a CRM.
I don't.
Yeah, I've never used it, but they put out some really good content around the concept of it all. But yeah, so when you talk the talk, okay, they're right on track. I've never had that opportunity to use it, but they certainly look like they know what they're doing. I'd love to 6 months from now hear how that's going.
Mm-hmm.
I'll let you know.
All right. Real quick question for you, Ryan. When you talk about that one sign up page, are you putting them? I forgot what you call it. Like when somebody goes to the quick apply, so to speak, or the quick register, are you putting them up against like an evergreen rec, or are they going to more of a talent network type deal?
It's actually more of a talent network type deal. JobVite has several different modules, if you will, or pieces that you can pull in. Part of that is they've got what their name is JobVite Engage, which is a CRM, so that you can start setting up your marketing content and doing your drip campaigns and things like that. So I built a general application out there just so that I can start pulling those names in. I actually don't subscribe to the JobVite Engage yet. UltiPro wanted to charge me an ungodly amount of money to pull my data from them and move it over to JobVite. So I said, nope, we'll just start from scratch. And so while I'm building that campaign, I'm going to give it about a year while I get all the contacts in there and then turn on that engage feature. And that'll allow us to do the automatic marketing. A lot of the stuff, if anybody's used Smashfly, a lot of the stuff that you can do in there, you can do in JobVite Engage. So.
Yeah, I think Smashfly is a good competitor to Beamery. They're both pretty big names in that industry. Yeah, Ryan, I think I'm probably preaching to the choir right now, but when I say paying attention to the categories that you put people in within that network, it's like, you got to plan that ahead. Otherwise, it's just become this big glob of people versus how do I go find the people I want and how to
exactly. Yeah. And if you get that big glob, you just spend a ton of money and a ton of time for a completely useless feature.
No. Anybody else want to add to Ryan's topic before we jump over to Catherine? All right, Catherine, let's sort of jump over to you real quick.
Sure. Well, good morning, good afternoon, depending on what time zone you're in, everyone. And, I took a look at a lot of the suggestions and answers people had, so compiled together a lot of great stuff there. So thank you for that. Anyway, I'm Catherine Amato, and I've been a recruiter for well over 20 years, 20 plus, 25, and both on the contingency recruiter, retainer side, and then the last half of my career on the corporate recruiter side. So, and I currently work at the corporate for Guitar Center, and I support our AV integration business and business solutions. I'm the recruiting manager there. And the idea, one of the recruiting tools that I would love to have, and I had it demonstrated once in about 2017, and it was this one company and it was demoed, and it was a platform that, or maybe it was a SaaS, but it was like a platform, and what it had, it was a search tool, and it incorporated, if someone had a footprint on the internet, it incorporated all those anywhere someone had a footprint. And for instance, if you were searching for a specific type of candidate or job, say at the time I was searching for an electrical engineer, and it would pop up a page of somebody, and it would have their resume. It found their resume somewhere, and it would show all the sites they were found on, all the different sites, and it even had links to whether they were on, at the time, maybe Dice or Indeed, or all the different avenues, and it had all their phone numbers, all their emails, and all the things. And not everybody's found on LinkedIn, and not everyone, LinkedIn recruiters very, even though it's one of my favorite tools, but it's very overused. So when you're searching for candidates, you need to find every avenue everywhere, and you can do X-ray searches on a lot of different areas right now to find these hard to find candidates. But to have a tool that can find somebody that has a footprint anywhere would be really, really nice to have. And so this would be like my dream tool, to be able to have one source that can find somebody that has any type of footprint on the internet without having to go to, you know, this Chrome extra thing and Google search and Boolean and all these different ways and spend all this time to find one particular candidate. So that's kind of like my dream. If someone can create, or if someone has this, and I don't remember the name of this company, or if they're still in business or what happened to them, but they had a good thing started. And that's kind of my dream, you know, tool that I could have. And if anyone knows of a company that does that, that would be great.
Go ahead, Ryan.
I actually do know of one. It's one that I used when I was on the IT and engineering side. At the time, it had a lot of work to get to the depth that you're looking for there, Catherine, but the name of it, to get it out there, is whoknows.com.
It was the name?
Whoknows.com.
Uh-huh.
And what it does is really exactly what you're describing, Catherine. It goes out. Everybody, you got a profile. If you go out there, you can go claim your profile. A person has to claim their profile for it to become active on the site. But essentially what it does is when you claim your profile, it pulls together all of that different information that it can find from you across the internet. Places that you've spoken, events that you've registered, your LinkedIn profile, resume if it's out there, your portfolio. I know those are huge for, like, if I recruit a web developer, web designer, I don't even look at a resume. I'm 100% in the portfolio, right? And so it includes all of that information for you, as well as any email address or phone number that's associated with Zoom info. So it goes out to Zoom info and all those others and pulls in any contact info. And what's really cool about it is when you pull up a candidate, there's no job posting or any of this. This is purely a sourcing tool. But when you pull up a candidate, you're going to get all of the information that you have available, and it's going to withhold the contact information. So that's the subscription side of it, is basically every time you click give me the contact information, you get a certain number of credits per month. So when I was using it, I used 100 credits a month. I never ran out, and I was able to very quickly and engage the right candidates. And then I'll put this plug in there for the technical recruiters. It does an absolute wonderful job of breaking down the technologies associated with somebody's work environments. Mm-hmm. And part of their algorithm is it goes out and it checks. So if somebody, so 210 home buyers warranty, for example, if 10 people in our IT department are starting to update their stuff and they have specific technologies associated with, like, their LinkedIn profile that talk about the technologies, then anybody else who claims their profile and says that they work for 210, mm-hmm. it's going to start validating those technologies. So as you're looking for that specific, mm-hmm. Say .NET, so if you're looking for a core .NET developer and a specific technology string, you can put those technologies in there and you'll be able to get to the company that uses that tech, so that, again, you can get to that right pool very quick. Really awesome tool.
Do you know how much it costs, Ryan? Sorry,
yeah, when I was using it, I believe it was $100 a month for one user. They will set you up with a free demo. And if I remember right, and again, it's been a couple of years, but the free demo, they gave you 25 contacts with, so that you could go out there and play. So, yeah.
But somebody has to claim the profile to be on there?
Yeah, so you can find the profile, but for the most up-to-date contact information, yeah, somebody would need to claim it and update their contact info. If they don't do that, you're going to be stuck with Zoom info contact, which can be accurate, might not be, but it's usually work contact information. And I try not to widely broadcast that, because I know a lot of people in recruiting. There are some who are very comfortable calling into somebody's work number, and there are some that are just not. And so you got to make your best judgment there.
Yeah. And my ideal tool also would have all their social networking. So whether they have, Twitter, old-fashioned Facebook, or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
whatever.
And this one does bring in social media as well. So
yeah. Social media and all that thing, but it wouldn't have people claiming it, because it would be more for passive candidate, passive people, because it would be searchable for the recruiter, not for, the candidate. But anyway, but that's an amazing tool that you brought up. I mean, that's I was that tool.
The tech is there. Let's see who grabs it and where they take it.
So here's a question for
that's one of the great things about this topic in general, is the tech is out there so much.
Yeah.
So here's a question for the group to kind sort of both your items together. So let's say I go to whoknows.com and I find this list of people, and let's say, I find the 25 people that are of interest. Well, now how do I engage them? Right. So there's another tool to the conversation I use quite often. It's called Zap Info. So it can go to sites and sort of grab a list of people and compile it into a CSV, and it'll grab their LinkedIn profile information, their Twitter accounts, Catherine, to your point, but it creates a list for me that then I can import to wherever I want. So if I'm using a CRM or my ETS, okay, grab that list, zap it in, as they say, in there. Ryan, to you, with that tool, do you know, okay, once I see my people, what's the method for engaging those people then?
From what I remember, it was just email or phone. I don't know at the time if they had built out any note capability. I do believe that messages were stored in the system so that you could somewhat track there, but I don't think there was anything for any kind of campaign or engagement strategy. It was just pulling all the information together, presenting it to you, and kind of leaving it up to you for the engagement part.
Yeah, I'm a big proponent of having either a CRM or an ATS like a CRM where you can grab from all over the place and drop into your centralized piece of property that you own and can engage with, and then track going forward up there.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you, Catherine. Does anybody else have any comments on that piece of it? It sounds like we got a sort of a lead of a tool to go look at. Oh. All right, Paige, sort of jump over to you.
Yeah, absolutely. Hi, everyone. So my name is Paige Marstell. I work for ACV Auctions in Buffalo, New York. Started, like Ryan, my career in staffing, and actually also, like Ryan, jumped over to one of my clients. So saw how great ACV was doing, living in this tech startup world. When I started almost 2 years ago now, we had 400 employees, and we have 1,200 now, so we've grown pretty quickly. And one of the things that kind of just this year we started really focusing on is people analytics. With, a company that's growing so quickly, a company that, we are in all 50 states, there's a lot of reporting that the executives are looking for, and our current ATS doesn't have the capabilities that we're looking for. So we use Greenhouse, which Monica and I were talking about, has a lot of really great capabilities, but they're also lacking in some areas. I think reporting is one of those. They have some canned reports, and then they have a very rudimentary report building tool. But it's very difficult to kind of pull that raw data into, a system like Tableau where you can build your own reporting. And monthly I'm building reports for the executives that go out with, time to hire reports, sourcing reports, attrition reports, and pulling that data from Greenhouse is much more difficult than it should be. And kind of scrubbing that data is much more difficult than it should be. So having a more seamless connection between Greenhouse and a reporting tool. And then also, it's funny you bring up AltiPro because that's the HRIS we use. And we, one of the other things that I wish we had is just a more seamless handoff between our ATS and our HRIS. Right now, the only information that pulls over from Greenhouse to AltiPro is the candidate's name, their pay rate, and their hiring manager. So we're having to enter in all of their other information, which is in our applicant tracking system. It just can't get pulled into AltiPro. So that is, a task that our HR coordinator has to do, which if we had, you know, that stronger integration built, that's something that we could get rid of and her time could be used in a better way. So those are kind of my two big gripes with the system that we currently have. And then kind of similar to what Catherine was saying, but more of within the ATS, being able to have a keyword search within our current base of resumes. So, you know, since we implemented Greenhouse about this time last year, we've had almost 40,000 people apply to our jobs. I would love, yeah, we have been, you know, very fortunate. We've gotten some really good press, but we can't search keywords within resumes. So, you know, if I'm looking for someone with Salesforce, if I, you know, on the tech side, if we're looking for someone with something really specific like Kubernetes, we were looking for a NetSuite developer, you know, those are things that are very specific that I'm sure we have people that have applied before, but we can't keyword search within our ATS like you can in LinkedIn or on their profiles.
Paige, around reporting, have you ever used like what I do is I do scorecard reporting, and it's just a fancy way to say I pull a report basically weekly or multiple reports. I drop it into Excel, and then I use formulas. So like the scorecard is this one tab that looks into all the data, and just hit refresh and you got all up-to-date information as far as like the raw numbers go. Have you guys ever played with that type where you grab your raw data and then run a process on it? Or is that what you're doing with Tableau?
Yeah, so that's what we're actually doing. Greenhouse does have a function where they can pull reports into Google Sheets, and we actually use Gmail and the Google Docs and Google Sheets, but you can refresh those, but we have so much data that it takes so long to pull that data and to drop it into an Excel spreadsheet, and that is how we're currently building our reports, is it all in Excel. It would be much easier, and Greenhouse does have a BI connector that costs a decent amount of money that our company currently will not pay for, but that's something that would help us. But right now, really just being able to pull, you know, all of the raw candidate data is much more difficult than it should be. It's very easy to pull these kind of canned reports, but the canned reports aren't always exactly what we're looking for. So.
Right. A good way to get budget is if you run those Excel reports, whatever, show the burden it takes to get there, and then go back and try and argue for that money in there. Show the pain point basically and the benefit of it. Are you a fan of like pie charts and bar charts as far as dashboards go?
Yeah, I that's basically what our dashboards look like. I build them in Excel and then kind of export them into a PowerPoint for our executives monthly.
I can't stand those. I don't like pie charts and bar charts. They don't tell me enough. Everybody seems to want like the numbers. Give me the details.
They like to actually have, we do have a much more detailed report, but they like to see very high level, very, very high level numbers. Kind of, we have our orgs kind of split into tech, corporate, and field. So they like to see very high level, you know, what those three sectors of the business look like for the month. And then if they need additional data, you know, we provide that to them upon request. Gotcha.
Interesting. Yeah, it's, you talk about the two systems talking together. Finding a good API team and an available API team is hard to find. And I've tried to liaison between one company and another. Oh my God, that just takes so long. And if one company makes a change on their end and it breaks, and you find out the hard way because some exec is saying my report isn't showing up this morning. I know API technology has come a long way. I think still has a ways to go. And Ryan, to your point about the drop and drag, cannot wait till they have drop and drag API between two different systems, kind of like what is it? If this then that type technology tool for sort of that type of mindset to it. Oh, I just drag this and drop that, and systems talk to each other. Waiting for that. That's my dream list, is drop and drag API.
Yeah.
So, all right. Anything else to add to Paige's comments? Otherwise, Monica, we'll jump over to you. All right, let's jump over to Monica.
Hi, everybody. Thanks again for having me today. So I lead the recruiting coordination and operations for a company called Rally Health. I've been there for about 2.5 years. You know, I relate heavily with Paige's story. When I started, we were at about 750. We're now over 1,500. So also seeing explosive growth, you know, and certainly tools are something that we have invested in heavily to help us get there. We have offices all over the country. So again, we're dealing with a lot of time zone challenges and things like that. You know, but we've spoken a lot on this call about tools, you know, specifically for sourcing and bringing in talent and attracting talent. But I'm going to speak more from the operations side of the house on tools that we actually have invested in that have helped us with candidate experience specifically, and also measuring candidate experience. So like Paige mentioned, we do use Greenhouse as our ATS. One of the first things, and I started as a recruiting coordinator initially when I joined the company after having some experience working for a smaller staffing firm called the Weinman Group and sourcing and recruiting. So that's my background there. But, you know, we really were doing a lot of manual scheduling. You know, Greenhouse is great. It has a scheduling function. You know, it integrates really well with the G Suite, you know, with Google Calendar and things like that. But when it came to putting together large panel interviews, and at the time, because we were growing so much, we really needed something that was going to help us get out of a bunch of spreadsheets and pulling up 1,000 calendars. You know, at the time, I remember my team using, you know, myself included, you know, we just had these notepads, you know, with just scribbles, all kinds of notes and highlighters. And so we eventually invested in a tool called Good Time, which some of you may have heard of. So it is automated scheduling software. We had spoken earlier on the call about, you know, tools where candidates can effectively schedule themselves. So Good Time really offers that. You know, it has kind of a Calendly feature if you just want to provide a link. So our sourcing team can use that, our recruiters can use that. We also were able to take all of our spreadsheets from all of our technical roles, you know, levels, locations, things like that, that are really important for assessing candidates and getting a really good candidate experience, and actually plugging that in to the back end of the tool using their tagging system. So that has been a real game changer. It's given our team a lot of their time back. It's also made switching over to all virtual on-sites, you know, that we're experiencing right now, very seamless. They have great templates, you know, that we can create for different roles. It's easy for us to onboard new coordinators to help with that. So, you know, candidate experience, I can't stress enough, it's just so important to really get somebody to you know, join your company's family. The other thing that we love about it is that it helps us to calibrate and track new interviewers. Again, we were doing that manually in spreadsheets. Same thing with tracking how many interviews were scheduled for the week. We were doing that manually. The tool allows us to do that. It has some reporting and analytics capabilities as well. It is not a cheap tool, I'm sorry to say. For those listening on the call who got really excited, you know, that is the one thing you do have to grapple with, but it's been worth it for us. And when you think about, you know, either, you know, putting on additional headcount of coordinators or investing in a tool, you know, you have to make that decision. Other than that, you know, I'll jump over to a survey tool that we started using. And to be clear, this does integrate both Good Time and this tool Starred that we use, which is an automated survey tool. It's triggered based off of rejections and hires in Greenhouse. So when you push the button, survey gets sent out. Paige, I'm sure you'll, you know, relate with this, where, you know, Greenhouse does offer a survey. It's pretty bare bones. You know, it does cover, you know, a range of topics, but it is also anonymous. It's very hard for us to tie it back to different recs, to recruiters, to coordinators, you know, things like that, where we really want to measure those different touch points. So we're able to set up different workflows based on what stage the candidate made it to, and then customize a survey based on that. So that's been a real game changer. We maybe would get, you know, I mean, we have, you know, tens of thousands of applicants every year at our company, and we would maybe get 800 surveys back, you know, and it was great because you could benchmark it against other companies. That's one of the advantages, you know, other companies that use Greenhouse. But the great thing about Start is we launched at the end of October. We've already had 2,000 responses. So it's really, you know, it just, and we've been able to make those significant changes to our process and little touches here and there that just give candidates a more personalized feel. So I'll stop there because I know that we're over time, but I have other tool integrations and thoughts on, sort of beefing up the ATS that we have. But, ultimately I saw in a lot of the messages that we got back, and some of your wants was just an ATS that could do it all. And I agree. I would love an ATS that could do all of these without having to, pull from these various integrations and tools that we've invested in.
Monica, how often do you send your candidate surveys out? Do you do it like once every quarter or once the rec is closed?
So it's triggered automatically when a candidate is rejected or hired. So it's, not, based on when the rec is closed, but really when that candidate is closed out. And then we have a cooling off period that's in there. So we do have 30 days. So let's say a candidate applies to multiple jobs. We obviously don't want to blast them with a bunch of different surveys. So it will, not send anything until later. And fun bonus, we also use the surveys for our new hire surveys and our 30-day check-in surveys as well for employees who've joined Rally. So.
Interesting. And are you willing to say how much you guys paid for Good Times?
So Good Time, it really depends. It depends on the size of the company, so I'm not necessarily comfortable sharing the price tag on that because I think it would really depend on the needs there. So I don't want to scare anybody away.
No worries.
Start, on the other hand, is quite inexpensive, and they are actually based in Holland. They're in the Netherlands, and they are an absolute joy to work with. Same with Good Time. I could not endorse them enough. We've really enjoyed the partnership. So
yeah, I'm starting to see a lot of HR tech or recruiting tech come outside of the US. Interesting enough, it's sort of I always thought, hey, in Europe they use agencies so much, it's really geared towards that, but I'm just starting to see that quite often these startups pop up in this type of world from outside the US. All right, anybody have anything to add? I do have a quick question, and this is who put in, I can't remember who put it in the chat group. Recruitment Edge out of Career Builder. Has anybody ever used that? I've never even heard of it.
Yeah, I haven't heard of it either.
It's any search you do gives not only the CB database or Career Builder database results, but scrapes all profile sites to give a full footprint plus any available contact information. That seems along the line of Ryan's suggestion, I think, and Catherine on your topic. So that's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
We kind of want a job board scraper in reverse, right? Candidate scraper, so to speak.
Yeah, right.
Oh, Sean Watzka has used it.
Huh.
All right. Okay. Yes, we are running over. I think the conversation is going pretty quick there. I do have one thing when we talk about tools and kind of the flow that my little dream list is really to, once it gets back to that targeting, I want to be able to easily find my target group that I want to reach out to, easily send a message to them. I know people don't like to use templates, but time is of the essence. So if I just want to reach out to 25 people really quick and I have a pre-existing relationship, I can keep it sort of close and to the point. So I'd like to be able to reach out to them very easily because I just grouped them and get their responses, not back to my inbox, but kind of a thumbs up, thumbs down of interest. And then it goes into the process, whether it's here's an invite to schedule on my calendar, or you go right into my workflow in the ATS or CRM or what have you. But the ability to target, engage, and to sort of get that next action is sort of like I've been trying to figure it out on my own to help me schedule these panels, to be honest with you, so I can get a better rhythm to it. But that's sort of my dream, the ask, get, and the action type of workflow for those people that I already know or have that connection to. So that goes back to the whole CRM world. All right. Anything anybody else wants to add? I thought that conversation was really good. A lot of good chat. We didn't lose anybody, even though we went a little bit over, so much appreciated.
I was just going to chime in. There was a question about, what does your company do? What do you do if you if you don't have the budget for any additional tools to use. And, I know that there are a lot of companies, that may not be as lucky, and especially during this time, to be able to invest in additional recruiting tools. And I would say, really one good thing to do is just to really leverage your customer success manager for whatever tools you currently have and really try to optimize them. Dig in deep, say, can we do this? Working with, in-house engineers, trying to get that API, calibrated for your needs and things like that can be a big help.
I couldn't agree with that. Sorry, go ahead, Ryan.
Oh yeah, so I did put it in the comments here. I've been there where you don't have a dime to spend and you need something. Mighty Recruiter is a tool that I have found that is fantastic if you're looking for a free tool or a low-cost tool. It is an ATS. It posts to, I think, 22, 23 job boards, something like that, free job boards. You can plug in paid job boards and pay if you need them. So, for smaller shops, I know it's very typical to buy, single job postings rather than packages and things like that. So you can do all of that from within the tool. And it also has resume search functionality that's similar to ZipRecruiter. So you can search for free. You don't get the full name. You don't get the contact info. And it will charge you credits if you want the contact info, or you can invite that candidate to apply for free. So really good tool for free. It also allows you to build a careers page, which is very difficult to do for free in some situations. So really good for free or low budget recruiting.
Oh, that's fair. That's really interesting. Just a little quick side comment. So I have a son, plays computer games. All these games are starting to be, hey, they're free to play, but when you want to sort of upgrade or get the new design or whatever, and then you pay a little here and you pay a little there. Interesting, Ryan, to your point, it sounds like that type of mindset of companies, even like social app companies, it's free to play. And then as you get deeper into it, you pay a little here and you pay a little there. That's sort of interesting. See if that approach works. All right. Well, thank you very much, everybody. We all good on final comments? Think so? Yep. All right. So thank you for spending the time here today. Enjoy the rest of your day and enjoy the rest of your week, and we'll talk soon. Thanks a lot, everybody.
All right. Thank you.
Have a good
Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.